I played an international master. My first time ever playing anyone at that level. It was a simultaneous game. He was taking on 20 people. I was one of the 20. We all played black. The international master had first move always. As you can tell by the title, I was one of the only 2 people who drew against him. All the other 18 people lost against him. So let's see what happens. There's a lot of really cool lessons to this, and I think I'm getting a little bit better positionally. So first move for advantage, he gets white. He plays almost a waiting move, right? This is a waiting move. I didn't know what opening he was actually going to do, so I played the most logical thing, which was to go here. Now, I almost thought about going Dutch, so I almost said, you know what if I do a Dutch opening? But the issue with the Dutch opening is, one, I haven't played it enough, and going against an IM, I don't think you want to do an opening that creates an imbalance that you don't know too well. So I didn't do a Dutch opening. I played naturally, which is control the center and then see what he's going to try to do. So he does this. I was like, okay, this is very likely a King's Indian attack. Now, computer says Geet Opening reverse Nimzowitch Variation. But if you look, I'm thinking this looks right. Doesn't this kind of look like the King's Indian? So it's really interesting because that actually was a mistake. I'll tell you, I thought about this for a while. I'm like, what happens if I just push? Say he captures, capture. I was like, is he going to have a tactic or something to take my knight? And I guess I just psyched myself out. He didn't have a tactic. I actually should have pushed, but at this point, I was still a little intimidated. I was like, let's just play it safe. So I didn't. Look what happens. If I pushed, he would have had to go there, and then I would have been able to, look at this. I would have locked down this bishop, man. This bishop would have been almost useless. I just didn't think like that. I thought, okay, he's going to come down here, and he's going to probably find a tactic eventually. I don't like his knight near me in my territory, so I didn't go for that. But according to the computer lines, my first instinct was correct. So instead I played this, which was a miss according to the computer. And then he castles, and I take a little bit more of the center, support this pawn. Now I got 2. Plus, I already put my bishop out, so I was like, okay, it's okay to close now. Let this bishop out, and then I can castle. We keep going. He tries to kick my bishop, so that was pretty standard. Now I have this pawn pinned, but he takes a lot of space on the queen side. So I wonder, oh, that move was probably to prevent my knight from going here. And then I decide to pin, which according to the computer is not the best move. But I was like, I need to get my bishop developed. It says I should have done this. So it still says I should have pushed. At this point, I think because I dismissed that move already, I didn't think about it again, which is unfortunate because you want to go through your candidate moves every time, right? Every time the board changes, maybe a move that you dismissed before could be played again. That's a good lesson. I dismissed that move and I didn't even think about this move again. So I pin, and then he's grabbing a little. Actually, this is a mistake. Interesting. So apparently this was a mistake that I didn't take advantage of, but it's okay. This was the best move. At this point, I haven't decided which way to castle yet, to tell you the truth. That's why I did this. This was almost a waiting move, but it was a move to get my queen into the action. I was like, do I castle kingside or queenside? Look how far his pawns are advanced. So I decided to castle kingside, but getting a little ahead of ourselves there. So as you can tell, I don't think there's any big mistakes. If you look at the engine, you see we're pretty even right now. And I go there because I don't want his knight coming in. And then his knight, maybe he realizes that I have a move that I completely dismissed. Actually, now I know why. Now I know why he went here. He eventually saw that I have this move that I dismissed. So that was why. At around this point, I thought about it. So when he came around again, I told him pass, and I get 3 of those. So basically, he can come around and you can pass 3 times. So this was my first pass because I realized this was a very crucial moment. Eventually, I decided to take, which according to the computer was the right decision. And so now look at this. There's a little bit of a Christmas tree structure. His pawns are doubled, which is a long-term weakness, but actually he's controlling a lot too. So I thought this was a weakness I'd be able to exploit, but I don't think I ever did. This Christmas tree structure, he controls a lot, but I do have 1 pawn blocking his 2 pawns. So now I decide to get my rook more active. I'm thinking potentially eventually I might get the rook out. And so he decides to control more of the queen side. At this point, I think maybe one person already got eliminated. This was a point where I had to make a decision. I knew I had a move like this, and that probably was the best move according to the computer. Part of it was I didn't want to be too aggressive. Since he's an international master, he probably has more tactical patterns in his brain. So let me just play it safe. So I knew I needed to get one of these two pieces out of the way. So I got my knight out of the way, which according to the computer was not the best thing to do. But again, it doesn't lower my advantage too much. So he gets his queen into the action. I decide to attack a little bit. Finally, I was tired of getting pushed around. So he gets his rook into the action. And actually, this is an inaccuracy according to the computer. But again, you have to take the computer with a grain of salt. The computer's thinking 20 moves in advance. Humans are not. So I get my knight onto the king side. And now I finally attack this way. And so he closes it down. The decision I made was that if it becomes a closed game, I think I'm going to be happy because then there's a higher chance for me to draw it. So I was actually really happy that he closed this down. I really, really love using my knights. So if it becomes a closed game, I'm going to save this knight. I'm going to eventually trade this off. I'll have my knights to maneuver. So we keep playing. I get my rook out and very quickly watch this. I'll show you guys very soon. So this part, again, because I've decided if we're going to have a close game, I'll be happy. So I trade the knight for the bishop. And I'm attacking the bishop too. This part, I had a little bit of a miscalculation. I thought, look at this. I got a double attack. Ha, 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 ha. I got him. But all he had to do was go here. And I saw this move before he even came back around. So I was like, ah. But I was like, you know what? It's okay. At least I got my rook active, right? It wasn't the end of the world. But I seriously thought I got him with a tactic. It's like, nope. The answer was just to move the bishop back. So that was kind of funny. I said, I'm just going to charge my pawn up. And I'm going to open this up. And it was pretty funny. It was another sort of miscalculation. Because watch what happens. He just closes it down even more. And I'm like, I guess that's good. But then I realized, you know what? I don't think my knight has too many places to maneuver anymore. So I was like, oh no, I was going to embrace a closed game. But you don't want a closed game where the knight can't move. So you see how the valuation also makes it. So he's ahead now. Like he's very ahead, right? So at this point, I was starting to panic a little bit. Quite a lot of people watching me. I was turning to them. I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to panic now. And this was really cool that the computer vindicated me. I'm like, I need to move my knight, and then I need to move my queen somehow, and then get my knight into the action. Another decision was I could potentially move this way, but very quickly he shuts that down. See that? He, I think, saw that I was thinking potentially to get my knight in here, and so he shuts it down, and I decide, okay, we're going to have to do some exchanges right now. Watch what happens. He decides to go for it. I go for it. Actually, I didn't even think he would take with his queen. I thought he'd take with his king, get his king into the action, but he took with his queen. And I'm vindicated too that right now it's basically equal. Look, he's got two double pawns. Yes, look at my king. He's a little bit looking vulnerable, but right now he has no infiltration. So bam, I attack one of the double pawns. Computer vindicates again. That was a really good move. And here he decides, okay, I'm going to change my attack. I'm going to start attacking this way. And at this point, I'm like, I'm okay. I got two defenders of this pawn, right? He's got two attackers right here. And so I go ahead and I grab the pawn. And I close it down on the queen side. Again, I have a knight. He doesn't have a knight. So I'm like, I think I can get my horsey to jump around, do something, find a tactic, find a positional maneuver somehow. That was my thinking. And this is when I took my second picture. So now, again, look at this. It's pretty equalized, right? I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job, man. And at this point, I think a few more people fell. But it was still the majority of us were in the game. There was a group of people behind me. They're like, oh, this guy, we're rooting for him. Maybe I let the pressure get to me because they were rooting for me, but they were talking behind me too. And that was really annoying. We're at the mall. I forgot to tell you. We're at the mall. So he comes down to try to infiltrate. No worries, because this is protecting this, and Now I get another, you see this? Because I was afraid he'd find some kind of tactic or something. So it's like, I got to shut this down. Got to shut this bishop out of the game. We keep going. So this move, the computer says is the best move. That's pretty cool. And he's trying to get his attack on the king side going. So I put another piece into this too. Look at that. I'm trying to attack this rook. And there were some potential tactics, right? Because if I capture, he can capture. Look at this. He's got 2 pawns to capture. And it's a capture with a threat, right? Checks, captures, and threats. A capture with a threat is great. So I realized, okay, it's not as simple as it looks. So he gets another piece into the action. You might ask why this is such a brilliant move. Because if I capture, he's going to capture back with a threat on my rook, forcing my rook to move, which then makes this pawn vulnerable and he can infiltrate with his queen. So I see it and I get my queen here. So that way, when I capture his rook, it has a discovered defense. So he's like, go for it. So he closes it down even more. So he sacks a rook and my rook has to move. And this is where I blunder. This is hilarious. I forget that the whole point was to protect. Look at this. When I did that, I immediately laid down on the floor and everyone watches like, oh no, they knew that something went wrong. So I let him infiltrate. I was like, oh my God, he's going to capture. So I need to trade queens and I need to protect. So you know what he does? He trades queens and then bam, that bishop sniper gets my rook. I made a strategic decision, which is by trading queens, I'm going to prevent his attack from finishing me. But now I'm at a losing endgame. At this point, I take a breath and I calm down and I go, I capture a pawn. I'm like, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And so very soon after this, I get offered a draw. So at this point, my algebraic notation makes no sense anymore because it looks like there was an illegal move that I didn't catch. And so what I suspect happened was he made an illegal move, accidentally, of course, because, you know, he had played a lot of people. He was tired. I was tired. And I was still flustered from blundering. So I didn't notice the illegal move. He probably eventually noticed. In his mind, he's like, you know what? Jerry's the last one standing. Let's just give him a draw because it's going to take a very long time to try to go back and figure out where in the endgame the legal move was. I think that's what's going on because my algebraic notation just made no sense by the time the endgame happened. So that's why I stopped it at the point. At that point, obviously, he was pretty ahead, right? So he probably would have won eventually if I trust my algebraic notation. It looked like there was an illegal move. I basically let him move twice, it looks like what happened. And I think eventually he realized, and then instead of trying to go back and retrace everything, he just said, you know what, let's just do a draw. And I was like, absolutely. I was so tired. I probably would have lost. I was still a little emotional over blundering after playing so well. Lots of great lessons, guys. Positional play is very important. But also, take your time a little bit. How did I blunder? I blundered because I forgot the purpose of my previous move. My queen was guarding that pawn to prevent the infiltration, and I blocked my queen's scope. I blocked my queen's vision. And then the second lesson is, once you blunder, don't keep blundering. I then blundered my rook for no reason, but because I got emotional. And then I got my head back in the game. I recaptured a pawn, but by then it was honestly too late. From an attacking perspective, trading queens is not always the best thing. And the most important thing, and this is the reason I'm sharing this with you guys, celebrate your accomplishments. Late in 2023, some of you might know, I got inspired. I don't know why. I give some shout out to my friend Liam, but I think some of it came from above. Something told me I got to start this hobby, this thing I've wanted to learn that I never did. Give credit to your own studies and maybe some of the powers higher than your understanding that inspire you. So I thank you guys so much. A lot more to come. I'm sure now that I've played one international master, it's only about time before I play a national master or a FIDE master or grandmaster, etc. Maybe Dina Balankaya, I'll play you. How about that? I'll play Dina Balankaya sometime. All right, guys, talk to you soon.